It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Thursday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. It's pretty amazing. There's sort of like a weird mirror situation occurring. We have two big stories tonight, and they're kind of like the exact opposite of what needs to happen. Our featured story, we're talking all about the imminent war with Iran. So we're going to war with Iran. We're sending the military to the Middle East to bomb Iran. We might even send special forces on the ground to raid their nuclear sites, government sites. At the same exact time, we're going out of Minneapolis. So Tom Homan came to Minnesota to relieve Greg Bovino and apparently to do some kind of oversight work or damage control after the killing of the protester over the weekend. Well, he announced that Minneapolis is going to draw down, or rather ICE will draw down the number of agents that are operating inside the city. So it's pretty incredible. Two seemingly unrelated stories, but yet deeply related. We're ending the war on illegal immigration. We're starting the war with Iran. So we're ending our operations against white genocide and mass migration. We're starting up another war for Israel, another war for Israel to be a regional power, a global power in the Middle East. That'll be our show. Like I said, featured story. We'll get into some of the details here. Featured story, we're talking about how Trump is considering a second strike on Iran. And here's the best part. This second strike, it will not only be more severe than the entire war last year. We bombed Iran in June of last year in Operation Midnight Hammer. They said it was a one and done, that we used B-2 stealth bombers to drop huge bombs, 50,000-pound bunker buster bombs on the nuclear sites in Iran. They said that was a one and done. We did it once. Now we're done. Well, that's clearly not the case because we're going back. But get a load of this. Not only is this operation going to be so much wider and deeper and more significant, but it's even more severe than what we originally planned for the second strike. As you know, a couple weeks ago, we were locked and loaded, as Trump said, ready to go. We were going to bomb Iran a second time this year, in the beginning of January. It seems that at the very last minute, that was called off for a variety of reasons, which we'll talk about tonight. Well, now that the United States has deployed a much larger force package, so there is the addition of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, which is the aircraft carrier, 4 destroyers. It's also a number of fighter jets, strike aircraft, as well as special forces being stationed in Azerbaijan and neighboring countries. They say there's 50,000 troops in the area ready to confront Iran. Now that there's a much larger force posture, now they're saying it's going to be even bigger than what we had planned a couple weeks ago. And that includes, as of tonight, potentially on the ground special forces raids. So they will be dropping bombs, and then they will be sending in, potentially, this is one of the options being considered, they're going to send in special forces, boots on the ground, that will apparently infiltrate Iranian nuclear sites and see to it that they are completely dismantled. So we are at war with Iran. And we'll talk about all that, the timing, the prospect that it will actually happen, how we got here. I hate to say it, but I told you so. I told you it was not over last June, and it seems like it's starting up all over again. If not now, seems like imminently and sometime in the next few weeks. So we'll talk all about that. We're also going to talk tonight about the operation inside Minneapolis. Well, wow, big surprise. So it's now, a week and a half? When did this guy even get killed? I guess it was only Saturday. Wow, it feels like that was like weeks ago. So after the killing of this Alex Preddy protester on Saturday, there has been much debate inside the Trump administration and inside the Trump movement about what the direction of the deportations will be after this. Obviously, there's huge public backlash, negative opinion polling and surveying, and it seems like the majority of the country is now not only against ICE, but they might even be against the mass deportation policy itself. And what's funny is that it has been very clear and obvious that the Trump administration is about to back down. That was clear before this guy was killed. That was clear before Renee Good was killed. It has been so transparent since really the beginning of the year. And by beginning of the year, I mean like January 1st. The Trump administration was telegraphing that they were preparing to walk back the mass deportation policy. What is funny is that since the killing of this guy, you have all of the so-called plan trusters, the Trump glazers, Trump shills. They have been working overtime on social media to try to convince themselves and everybody else that this is not happening, that there is not going to be a total capitulation, that they're not walking it back, that they are not finessing the language, changing and softening the language on mass deportations, although they have been so clearly. Well, now, today, it's irrefutable. So earlier in the week, Trump sent out Tom Homan, the border czar, to Minneapolis to get to the bottom of what is happening in the city. They sent out the captain of Border Patrol, Greg Bovino. He is now at Mount Rushmore. They sent Tom Homan in. And apparently they sent him in to get to the bottom of it and figure out what's going on and try to fix it. Well, he's been there for a few days. Today he held a press conference. And oh my gosh, if I were a Trump supporter, I would commit ritual suicide out of sheer embarrassment. If I were a plan truster, five-dimensional chess, Trump supporter, I would actually commit ritual suicide tonight. I would plan on it. I would make a plan. I would sit down with a sword and I would disembowel myself just out of pure shame before I could even talk to anybody. I wouldn't want to go to work. I wouldn't want to talk to my family. Tom Homan goes to the press conference and basically throws everybody under the bus. He goes up there and says, hey, nobody's perfect. He goes, we don't always get it right, and mistakes were made, and if ICE is unprofessional, then we're going to put a stop to it. And dude, you are getting bitched by the mayor of the city. You are getting bitched by the governor. Think about the language of either side. The mayor of the city, Jacob Fry, gets up and says, get the fuck out of here. And Trump and Tom Homan go to Minnesota and they're like, hey, we just want everybody to calm down. We just want to de-escalate. We're not perfect. No one's perfect. We're having productive conversations with everybody. And this Jewish soy boy mayor is getting up in front of the cameras with the Somalian community saying, hey man, get the fuck out of here. We don't want any more deportations. I'm the fucking mayor. He literally said that on Twitter. I don't know if that was a real tweet. That's also, and the language is severe here. That's what the mayor is saying. Tom Homan goes on TV and says, well, listen, we're not angels. Then he says, we're getting ready to draw down the number of ICE agents in the city. That's the word they're using, a drawdown. They're drawing down. That means retreat. That means a withdrawal, a retreat, a surrender. And he said the new focus is on targeted enforcement of criminal illegal aliens. Yeah, because when I see 50 million illegal, and I shouldn't say that, I'm Mexican, but when I see, but seriously, when I see 50 million illegal Venezuelans and Salvadorians and Haitians and Somalis and Muslims and Asians and Indians, you know what the last thing I'm thinking is? We need surgical, precise, targeted No, we need raids. We need sweeps. You know what it means to sweep? It means to take a huge broom and push everything out. We don't need targeted raids, targeted precision, surgical enforcement. We need sweeping raids. We need millions to go out. We need neighborhoods to be shut down. We need millions to be physically removed. Apologies for the slur. See, I can say that one because I'm Mexican. That's one of the perks. It's not all, you don't just get called a Mexican white nationalist, you also get to be racist against Mexicans. So this is our new mass deportation policy. Retreat, surrender, apologies, and ultimately total capitulation. There's going to be nothing massive about it. And we'll talk all about it. Hey, Andrew Torba, did you get what you voted for? Hey, Jack Posobiec, Mike Cernovich, Andrew Torba. Hey, is the MAGA hat back on? Here's how Trump can still win. What Trump is doing is this is actually attrition warfare. This is what you want to see. This is how you know we're winning. No, see, the black pillars don't get it. When Tom Homan gets up and says we're drawing everybody down, we're shifting gears to targeted enforcement, no, you guys don't get it. That's actually what you want to see. That's how you know we're winning. And the MAGA hat is back on. It's actually five-dimensional chess, and I'm getting what I voted for. Give me a break, man. Embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourselves. We'll talk about all that. Should be a pretty good show. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Let me know what you think about my new look. I shaved the beard and mustache. Back to regular show, regular style. I don't know. What do you think? I think I really prefer the clean-shaven look, to tell you the truth, but we'll let the reviews come in. With that said, before we get into the news, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. My goodness. Have you heard about the new alternative to TikTok? We talked about it last week. TikTok has finally been acquired by Larry Ellison. After years of negotiations, the United States has brokered the sale of TikTok, at least its U.S. business, from the parent company ByteDance, which is Chinese, to a newly created U.S. entity, a consortium of public and private interests, of which Larry Ellison of Oracle will be one of the most influential interests. He will be one of the most influential stakeholders in this newly created private entity. The deal went through last week. They got a new CEO of the company. Surprise, surprise, he's a Jew. He's a pro-Israel Jew. He was at the World Jewish Congress talking about how in his position at TikTok, he shut down anti-Semitism, criticism of Zionism, among other things. Skepticism about the Holocaust was silenced on TikTok. This is what he did as a lieutenant at TikTok. Now he's the boss. Well, in response to the acquisition of TikTok by Larry Ellison, there is a new alternative, which apparently has been created by some sort of Palestinian. It's a Tech for Palestine movement. And apparently it's these Irish guys that are very far left, sympathetic to Palestine. They created a TikTok alternative called Upscroll. And there's been so much talk about this platform on X for the past week. I've seen people shilling this, and it's all the usual suspects. It's that Christensen guy who is like a white-presenting Palestinian, super far left. It's Ryan Grimm, the self-hating white man, the self-hating white simp who is doing tricks on it for Ilhan Omar and calling her a badass bitch and everything. Ryan Grimm, the far left guy from Drop Site News. All these far lefties are pushing this app. They're talking about how everybody's deleting TikTok, up scrolls at the top of the charts. Everybody's on there. It's a big party criticizing Israel. That is until today, when in response to the glut of anti-Semitic content on the newly created Upscroll, now the platform has announced that they're implementing hate speech policies. They're implementing new guidelines from their trust and safety team that ban hate speech, bullying, targeted harassment, racism, white supremacy, all that kind of stuff. Because it is run by leftists, obviously. And this is just yet another reminder. Just because the left is currently at war with Israel does not make them our friend. The enemy of our enemy is not always our friend, and it needs to be said that way. Who are we? We are the right wing. We are the true and original right wing. We are American. We are pro-white. We are Christian. We are nationalist. That is who we are. Those are our friends. And just because Israel and organized Jewry, we're having some drop frames. As always, this bum-ass platform, it's every night now. All right, it looks like it's good now. Everybody, then the live chat goes crazy. I see it out of the corner of my eye. Why does it do this every night now? Every night since I came back, we get 500 drop frames. What is that? They treat me like I'm black on this platform. It's actually crazy. You know, you would think holding down the platform, you know, getting, 600,000 followers in a year, you would think bringing in all the traffic, you'd think I would get some kind of attention. No, nothing. And we deal with this every night. Anyway, what was I saying? The enemy of our enemy is not always our friend. And so just because Israel, just because the organized Jewry, Jewish oligarchs, just because they are opponents of the white race in the United States and of the right wing and of nationalists, does not mean that the left is all of a sudden our ally. And here's the case in point. You have left-wing ideologues that are pro-Palestine. Why are they pro-Palestine? Because they see Palestine as like an indigenous community. Don't you understand that? The far left, self-hating white people, progressives, the reason they identify with Palestine, it has nothing to do with Judaism as such. It has nothing to do with organized Jewry or global Jewry as such, per se, in itself. They have a problem with Israel because they view the Palestinians as an indigenous community. So these are the same people that are doing land acknowledgements. These are the same people that want every public school in North America to say, we acknowledge that we are on stolen land and this is tribal land of the Indians. Like, it's the same thing. And that's why they have a problem with Israel, because Israel is capitalist. Israel is pro-Western. It's a product of British imperialism and American influence. Now, the Muslims are slightly different. The Muslims, they happen to be third worldist and anti-Western, but it's mostly because the Palestinians are their homeboys. Because the Palestinians are their Muslim homeboys and they care about the mosque. For them, it's religious. For leftists, it's ideological. For us, it is identity-based. Don't you see the difference? For Muslims, it is a jihad. The Israelis are pushing the Muslims out of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest mosque in Islam after Mecca and Medina. And so for them, it is about the Muslim Brotherhood. It is about their fellow Muslims, to some extent about Arabs. For leftists, it is ideological. It is materialist. It has to do with the struggle of indigenous working people against colonial capitalist imperialism. For us, it is about identity. It is about the fact that non-European, non-Christian people have all the influence in Western society, and using that influence, they are enriching and benefiting themselves. And that happens to be expressed in their support for Israel. How do they enrich and benefit themselves as Jews, first and foremost? Well, they help Israel, which is an extension of themselves. It is a part of their identity. And we would say that if we had a government of white Christians, that would not happen. Because white Christians, at least most of them, dispensationalists notwithstanding, your true white Christians are not going to put Israel over America because there is no ethnic, messianic, eschatological connection to that country. But that's only one form. That's only one expression of their ethnic or religious self-interest. And anyway, so I saw that today. I said, big surprise. Big surprise, this Upscroll app that all of these turd worldists are promoting. I'm getting really sick of that stuff. I've told you this before. It is time to eschew all of that. We do not need all of that. I do not want to hear any more from these third worldists about ICE, about America, about the West, and all that. I'm just kind of over all that stuff. It had its place and it played its part at a time in our history, in the history of this conversation, but I think it has certainly run its course, and I am just not a fan of it anymore. I don't think I ever really was. I thought it was useful for a time. Now I think it's a complete and total liability. So forget, I'm not going on the pro-Palestine left-wing app where they're going to be policing the so-called real anti-Semitism. It's like, for example, Hassan Piker just got banned on Twitch, which W's in the chat. Hassan Piker just got banned on Twitch for calling supporters of ICE Zionist pigs. He says, if you support ICE, you're a Zionist pig. Really? Once again, it's like, what is the value of someone like that? Hassan Piker is human garbage. I didn't know they stack shit that high. Hassan Piker is human trash who should be deported back to Turkey. Honestly, we should just put him in the ocean like Osama bin Laden. We should just give him a watery grave like bin Laden. Just tie weights to his ankles and throw him overboard. I don't care who the does it. I don't care if the IDF does it. Hey, Netanyahu, if you can hear us, can you do us a solid? Netanyahu, if you're listening, you know what do you know what would get all of Gen Z white guys, right-wingers to support Israel again? You need to go Maduro on Hassan Piker and throw him in the ocean. Give him a watery grave. You want us to support Israel? You want to make the case, why should we ally with Israel? You know, that would be a start. That would be a good first step. I see Hassan Piker, he goes, if you support these ICE deportations, you're a Zionist pig. Dude, they are African Muslims that are stealing from us. And he's over there glazing them. He's over there in Minneapolis with that guy that ran for mayor. He's over there LARPing as a communist. He's got his general secretary costume on. He's got his Mao Zedong shirt on. He's got his Ushanka on. And he's over there LARPing like some kind of socialist revolutionary instead of a champagne socialist, which is what he is. And he's over there with these anti-white, anti-American Muslims that shouldn't even be here. They're stealing from the taxpayer. And he goes, if you want these people gone, you're a Zionist pig. It's like, first of all, you love Jews, okay? First of all, you would lay down for Alex Soros. What are you talking about? These people want to flank us and say, if you support a strong immigration policy, they say you're a Zionist, you're pro-Israel. You want to play that game? I don't think you do. Because you notice the left is now trying to outflank the right and say, well, if you support mass deportations, you're not a pure enough Israel hater. You really want to go down that road? Is that something that you think is a good idea? You think you have escalation control over that? Because we admire Hitler, so I don't think you want to go there. Hassan Piker wants to step to us and say, you're not anti-Israel enough. Really? Because, you're not really critical of Jews at all. He goes on Twitter and says, this is Israel censorship. No, bro, it's Jewish censorship. It is Jewish billionaires. It is Jewish organizations. And Israel is the Jewish state. And what binds left-wing and right-wing Jews in America to the cause of Israel is their Jewishness. Their Jewish identity. You ready to go there? You want to take it there? You sure about that? And it's funny because leave it to the dumbest leftist in America, Hassan Piker, the biggest numbskull, the biggest meathead idiot, to make that tactical mistake. He's daring the right to be more anti-Semitic. Bring it on. You want to be in an anti-Semite competition with the far right? Bring it on. I don't think you want to play that game. You want to start down that road? If you support ICE, you're a Zionist pig. Really? If you support white genocide and mass immigration, you're a Jewish shill. How about that? And that's the truth. They want to say that enforcing immigration is they make this abstruse argument that that's pro-Israel. Yeah, well, I would contend that mass immigration and diversity is a Jewish plot, which it obviously is. And I would debate anybody on that. I would debate Hassan Piker. Hey, Ryan Grimm that never met a third world shithole that he didn't fall in love with, caping for Haiti and caping for all these other countries. When Ilhan Omar got sprayed with apple cider vinegar, did you see the video? She tries to charge her attacker. Ryan Grimm tweeted, that's classic Ilhan. Classic Ilhan. She's going to try to confront her attacker. Dude, you are anti-white garbage. He sees this anti-white Muslim uppity Somali. Ilhan Omar straight up hates white people. It could not be more clear that she has absolute contempt for whites and Americans. She's a boss bitch, Muslim, brown, socialist, and Ryan Grimm is like, classic Ilhan, total boss. Dude, fuck these people. Like, you cannot get it through your head enough. Hassan Piker, Ryan Grimm, Alex Preddy, Renee Good, fuck all of them. I am so done with the left. We have to extricate ourselves from the left-wing capture on this issue. You do not need to be an open borders, anti-white, left-wing, Marxist piece of human garbage to criticize Israel. As a matter of fact, it inhibits your ability to see the full picture. Where do you think open borders came from? Before the Hart-Celler Act, before the Civil Rights Act, you had a huge Jewish population inside the United States fighting to get the government to let in more Holocaust refugees. You had a huge contingent of Jewish lawyers and judges and activists that wanted to transform America into a multicultural, multiracial, anti-racist society. You don't want to go there, believe me. I see all of them saying this is the Israelization of America. They want the immigration enforcement to see Americans like the IDF sees the Palestinians. No, I'd like them to deport every illegal immigrant that has no business being here. We need to reconquer America. Just like how Europeans conquered America the first time, we need to reconquer America and take the country back from the invaders, the drug dealers, the criminals, the economic migrants, the gangbangers, all these people that are destroying our society and by the way, who have been permitted to be here by powerful Jewish interests that feel more comfortable with gangbanging non-whites than with white people that have extraordinary potential. So take all that stuff and blow it out your ass. No more guilt tripping. I'm not going to be guilt tripped by one more bleeding heart liberal saying, but you don't. I see that one Palestinian guy. He's like, well, you don't really care about Palestine. I'm America first. If you're Palestine first, why don't you go back there? I see this guy, by the way, the guy looks white to me. All he does on TikTok is talk about Palestine, the Palestinians, the raised fist. Hey, pal, you're living in the United States. Is that what you exist here to do, is propagandize us for some? You have my sympathy. I'm sympathetic. I'm compassionate. But this is America, and I'm an American. I'm deeply sympathetic. I am deeply compassionate. I don't think we should be bombing those people or supplying Israel with the bombs to kill them. But this is America. If all you care about is Palestine for its own sake, you want to be a martyr for the cause of Palestinian statehood, you know what? Why don't you go and sign up with them over there? This is the United States. I'm not going to be guilt-tripped on my own fucking soil. I'm not going to be guilt-tripped in my own country. It's two sides of the same coin. You have the Jews that want us to go and fight and die for Israel. Then you have the left that wants us to go and fight and die for Somali scammers and Muslims and non-whites and blacks. And I'm the white guy that's saying America first, Americans first, European civilization first, Christendom first. The left wants us to lay down our lives for George Floyd and Renee Good. Fuck them. Seriously, let Israel handle their problems. Let George Floyd handle his own problem. Let all these people fight their own battles. I'm a tax-paying, fourth-generation U.S. citizen. I'm a Christian. I am taking my own side. I'm not going to be browbeat by some brainwashed progressive. I see that from Hassan Piker. You're a Zionist pig if you support deportations. Dude, you should be deported. It is a failure of the Trump administration that you have not been deported. You are a pig. You are a disgusting communist pig, and you shill for the biggest Jewish agenda of all, which is white genocide. Deporting Somalian scammers that shouldn't be here got nothing to do with Israel. Nothing to do. You want to talk about the pro-Palestine protesters? That one I'll give you. Somalian scammers in Minneapolis, it's got nothing to do with it. You want to abolish ICE. You want open borders. And there is nothing more Jewish and pro-Israel than that, you left-wing pig, you roach. You should be deported back to Turkey. Anyway, I lose my mind because it's so dishonest. And we cannot be the stupid people being emotionally blackmailed and guilt-tripped and ideologically captured by people that hate us. I am so sick of sharing a country with people that hate us. I get the same feeling when I see Mark Levin. I get the same feeling when I see Randy Fine and the rest of them, Roseanne Barr, as I do when I see Hassan Piker and Ilhan Omar. These people, they all hate us. Mark Levin goes up on stage and breathes fire about how much he hates anti-Semites and wants to destroy America first. So does Ilhan Omar. She gets up and she can barely conceal or veil her hatred of white people. And you got white piece of shit leftists like Ryan Grimm saying she's a girl boss. You get Hassan Piker saying abolish ICE. F them both. This is my most popular program. Take all the Mamdanis, the Omars, the Talibs, and take all the Shapiros and the Fines and the Loomers and the Levins. Take them all, get them together, get them all together, put them on a boat, and get them the fuck out of our country. Get them all out. I don't care what it is. Jews, Muslims, Third Worldist Muslims, Zionist Jews, All the Shapiros, the Levins, the Mamdanis, the Omars, all these people that can't conceal their hatred for whites that built this country, all these people that want to put every other race, every other nationality ahead of America, let's just kill two birds with one stone and let's deport all of them. That's my program. You have left-wing people that say, no, keep the Somalians, open the borders. Dearborn is actually a great place, Habibi. No, fuck all that. And then you get the Israelis that say, deport the Muslims. Muslims are the problem. But leave us alone in our communities where we're doing the exact same thing. You know what? Our patience has had its limits, okay? Our patience is at the limit with all of these alien tribes inside of our country. Who is going to raise up the flag for Christ? Who is going to raise up the flag for the white man? Who will raise up the flag for the United States of America? For once, instead of a hammer and sickle, Islamic crescent, a fucking Star of David, the UN flag. It's really, we have to embrace the right wing. We have to embrace the far right because the far right is the only side that is exclusionary to all of these harmful interests. The left wing wants to bring them all in, except for one. You know, they don't mind if you come in from the ghettos of Eastern Europe. All the Russian communists, all the Jewish Russian communists that built the modern left loves them. They just don't want the so-called capitalist, Zionist, whatevers. Just stop with that. Anyway, so that's that. No, I will not be on Upscrolled being policed for hate speech. No. You can criticize Zionism, but don't you dare say anything about Jews. No. You can criticize Israel, but not mass immigration. I've been very clear from the very beginning. We oppose white genocide. We oppose our Jewish oligarchy. They're deeply entrenched, deeply related. They are inextricable. I oppose them both. And as a matter of fact, that's a prerequisite, foundational. Can't oppose one and not the other. We want mass immigration, but I mean, what's even the point then? Okay, we're not being told what to do by Jewish Zionists. Now we're just being told what to do by Jewish liberals, black DMV workers, La Raza, and, some Indian business group. No, thank you. Anyway, but that's that. I do want to move on. I want to get into our featured story, which is about this imminent war with Iran. I've been meaning to talk about this for a while, and it's been a minute. Our featured story is about how we are rapidly hurtling towards a second wave of attacks against Iran. And it appears to me that this is inevitable and unavoidable. It is almost certainly going to happen. It was announced today by President Trump that if Iran does not come to the negotiating table and give up on basically everything, give up their nuclear centrifuges, give up their enriched uranium, give up their ability to enrich uranium, give up their longer range missiles, give up their support for the proxies. Trump is effectively demanding a complete and total surrender, or else Trump says we are going to war with Iran. And that menu of options to strike Iran now consists in a much wider range of possibilities. They now say that the Trump administration is considering special operations raids on the ground. So we're not just talking about airstrikes this time. We're not just talking about bombing government buildings and missiles and nuclear sites. The Pentagon is now talking about American soldiers inside Iran physically dismantling Iranian infrastructure. And to understand how we got here, we do have to back it up a little bit. And we'll reiterate some of the things that I hope you already know about the whole situation. So, of course, Donald Trump was basically elected for this exact purpose. I said this in 2024. The reason that Trump won the election, the reason that Trump became so popular, they let him. You do understand this, right? Trump was allowed to become popular. He was allowed to win the election. They stood down whatever these forces are that conspired against him in 2016 and 2020. They stood down and they let him become successful. And this was telegraphed years in advance. It was telegraphed after October 7th. Because after Israel was attacked on that day, a number of powerful American Jews, maybe you could say a majority of American Jews in general, shifted to the right. Why? Because they saw the reality of what is happening on the ground in Israel, which is that there is a contingent of Palestinian Muslims that have a genocidal hatred for Israel. That's the perception. That's the narrative. On that day, this performance, which is October 7th, there was this theater, a stage play put on for world Jewry. And the moral of that story was Israelis are not safe. Jews are not safe. We have to stick together. We need to be cohesive. And Jews in America that day were mugged by reality. They realized the world is still a dangerous place for Jews. And feeling vulnerable, they became more right-wing, seeking security through militarism, through tribalism. What's more, they saw the American political left sympathize with the Palestinians. And they were alienated from the political left by this. They saw that the far left, the progressives, the radicals, immediately, almost immediately sympathized not just with the Palestinian cause, but with Hamas. And this alienated many Jews who would have considered themselves liberals or Democrats. And so there was a shift rightward among all American Jews. I don't care how left-wing or liberal they were, they all shifted somewhat to the right after this day. Being very powerful in America, this had a knock-on effect. It made America more right-wing. If the liberal Jews running the media and academia and the lawyers and the donors and the ones in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, if they all became more right-wing that day, then they used their influence to make America more right-wing. America did not have an epiphany about wokeness. These people did. And so they stood down and they allowed Trump to win. Why? Because they knew that Trump was a vehicle for Israel's revenge. Whereas left-wing protesters and Democrats and liberals and the Biden administration were huffing and puffing all the way, trying to restrain Israel, criticizing Israel, trying to get them to stop their campaign. Powerful American Jews knew that if a Republican was elected to the White House and to the rest of the government, that they would allow Israel to take the gloves off and would actually supplement their efforts in a major way. So once you understand this, you realize that war with Iran in the Trump administration is a feature, not a bug. I know there are a lot of Trump supporters that believe that Trump's pro-Israel politics is a compartmentalized aspect of his program. They say that he's got lots of different policies, and some we like and some we don't like, and this idea that he wants to support a war with Iran, well, that's just one among other policies. And they also have this idea that they have this relationship with the president, that the president is listening to them, reading their tweets, receptive to their outrage, their emotions. And there was this idea among very naive and stupid people that might run certain Twitter accounts like AF Post, among other people like Andrew Torba, who might be named Mike Cernovich. And these naive and foolish and stupid people thought that we could try to support the good and criticize the bad, that we could sort of work with this arrangement. They thought that those pro-Israel politics were just sort of part of the deal, and maybe they could be mitigated in some way through pressure on social media. Well, I hate to tell you this, but that is absolutely not how it works. Trump was given hundreds of millions of dollars by donors with the understanding that the only way that he could unlock that money is if he gave them assurances that he would go to war with Iran. He is not elected and going to war. He was elected to go to war. You understand the difference? This is why we have a Trump administration. Actually, it's the complete opposite. The reason he is elected is to go to war with Iran, and all of the other things are ancillary. The trade war, the deportations, all the rest of it, those are the stocking stuffers. Those are the bonuses. War with Iran is the big ticket item that got him into the White House in the first place, and that's why he's there. He is a Trojan horse, and the purpose of the horse is not to give a gift to the city and the base. The purpose of the horse is to get the soldiers inside the city walls where they need to be. The purpose is to get Mike Waltz in the National Security Council. The purpose is to get all of these Zionists inside the Pentagon, inside the State Department, so that they can carry out their mission, which has been the case for a long time. And so as quickly as Trump was elected, this started. Netanyahu began visiting the White House demanding a war with Iran. Trump's own personnel started pushing for a war with Iran. Trump attempted to negotiate with Iran because I think that in his heart of hearts, Trump is against a war ideologically, but ultimately this was in vain because the table had already been set. Long ago, the Israelis and the Zionists and the Jews poisoned Trump's relationship personally with the nation of Iran by pushing him to assassinate Soleimani, by pushing him to rip up the Iran nuclear deal, by branding the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist group. They had already poisoned the well. They had alienated this particular president from Iran. They knew that a rapprochement would be impossible. They knew that diplomacy would be impossible because the seeds of distrust had been sowed a long time ago. And their insurance policy was they fabricated this myth that Iran was trying to assassinate Trump. Remember that? During the election, the Israel-infiltrated FBI, the Israel-infiltrated Pentagon, put out false intelligence that said that Iran was trying to kill Trump. And so if the well was already not sufficiently poisoned by the behavior of the first Trump administration, surely as Trump was propelled into the nomination and then the White House a third time, second or third time, respectively, that little assassination plot, that little piece of propaganda, that would do the trick. That would tip it in and seal the deal. And so Trump attempted to negotiate with Iran, attempted to pick up where Biden left off and normalize relations with Iran. But the damage was already done. And we were already on a collision course with this country. Throughout the first half of the last year, the Israelis propagandized the world about an imminent Iranian nuclear capability. Eventually, they launched their preemptive attack. They could not defend themselves, and they knew they couldn't. And that is how they were able to draw the United States into the conflict. And we bombed Iran's nuclear program. Now, again, a lot of Trump fans and Trump shills saw that first strike on Iran, and they lied to themselves, and they coped. And they said, hey, trust the plan. They said this is five-dimensional chess. Once the whole thing was over, they wiped their brow, they breathed a sigh of relief, and they said, see, Trump isn't a neocon. He just bombed Iran once, and now it's over. Now it's all finished. They said, actually, it was genius. It was ideal. They said Trump was able to disable Iran's nuclear hedge. He was able to do it without committing us into a war. It was a clean, effective operation. And now we don't have to go to war with Iran. We've neutralized their program, and we could focus our attention elsewhere. That's what they all told themselves, and that was the cope. But here was the problem with that line of thinking, okay? Iran's nuclear problem was never the problem, ever. The real problem at the heart of this antagonism between Israel and Iran is that Israel cannot tolerate the existence of a large, powerful Islamist state that does not recognize Israel. That is the fundamental problem. As long as Iran is Islamist, as long as it is powerful enough to check Israel's hegemony, as long as it influences other Islamist groups in the Middle East that challenges Israel's hegemony in the region, and as long as they will not normalize those relations, then Israel wants this country destroyed. That is Israel's mortal enemy. Just as it was Bashar al-Assad before that and Saddam Hussein before that. So Israel wants to utterly annihilate Iran. It is for this reason that Iran has built up a nuclear hedge. That was actually the reaction. The first move is that the United States and Israel supported both sides in the Iran-Iraq war. The United States and Israel collaborated to overthrow Saddam Hussein. The United States and Israel collaborated to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. The reaction to this policy, the reaction to this grand strategy was to create a nuclear hedge. And this, unfortunately, puts Iran between a rock and a hard place. No pun intended. If they don't have a nuclear hedge, they are vulnerable. If they do have one, then that creates a pretext for Israel to convince the United States to go to war with them. But understand, the U.S. interest in Iran is limited. In Israel, it is unlimited. Israel wants Iran to be wiped out. Therefore, Iran has a nuclear hedge. As long as Iran has a nuclear hedge, we need to ensure that they do not become a nuclear-armed state. That's a limited objective. We don't necessarily mind in itself that they have allies in Iraq, that they have allies in Syria or in Lebanon or Yemen, not by itself. We don't necessarily have a problem that Iran has missile systems, not in itself. We do have a problem that Iran has nuclear centrifuges. Because as the global hegemon, one of our real grand strategy objectives is to prevent the proliferation of WMDs. Because that is the only way that a revisionist middle power could ever threaten us. Iran cannot, would not ever threaten us with conventional capabilities. But any country with a limited nuclear, biological, or chemical arsenal could theoretically threaten the United States, either on our homeland through terrorism, or if we needed to intervene in some region by having an asymmetrical deterrent against U.S. intervention. So understand that is how the table is set. Israel wants to destroy Iran. So Iran has a nuclear hedge. That nuclear hedge invites intense U.S. scrutiny. What does this have to do with the war last year? Well, Israel and even Trump himself, the United States has been driven into a confrontation with Iran over the nuclear program. That has been the pretext. That has been the bait. In the first term, we were told that we have to rip up the nuclear deal because that will not sufficiently constrain Iran from getting a bomb. We were told that we had to kill Soleimani and do these things because Iran is nuclearizing and they're this anti-American nation seeking a nuclear bomb. Last year, the pretext for Israel's preemptive strike was that they had a nuke. And what was the U.S. strike on Iran? What was Midnight Hammer? The U.S. strike on Iran last year was a limited strike on Iran's nuclear centrifuges. But understand it in terms of the bigger picture. From our perspective, American Trump supporters were saying, well, the day is saved. We took out their nukes, and now they no longer pose a threat. Because again, that's our limited objective. That is the narrow way in which we find ourselves at odds intrinsically with Iran. And so with the nuclear hedge off the table, people say we no longer need to engage Iran, confront Iran. There's no longer a reason to engage Iran with hostilities. It's over because their nuclear program could not easily be reconstituted. So from our perspective, people said the day is saved, the issue is resolved, and now we're all going to live happily ever after. But again, that fundamentally misunderstands that there are three parties. There are three variables in this equation. What we did in June could be perceived one way, as a one and done strike that eliminated the one thing we were worried about. But think about it from Israel's perspective. If Israel's goal is to topple Iran, taking out their nuclear program is only the first step. The nuclear program is what protects Iran. If Iran is engaged in a once and for all battle, an existential battle for its existence, then Iran could always pull that trigger. That's their dead man switch, so to speak. They get a nuclear bomb, and then they become a porcupine. If they find themselves up against the wall, the U.S. and Israel breathing down their neck, ready to slit their throat, Iran can race towards a bomb and deter any major attack. And so with that nuclear hedge offline, it leaves them vulnerable. Israel's not finished because, again, Israel's problem is not that Iran has nukes. Their problem is that Iran's nukes protect Iran from being destroyed. Their goal is to destroy Iran. So once the nuclear program was destroyed, and Israel was bombing other sites also, missile launch platforms and government targets and decapitation strike on the military leadership, Israel then began to plan their next move, which is to further degrade Iran's other defenses, its proxies, and its missile program. The nuclear hedge is only the biggest deterrent that Iran has. Its other deterrent is that if Iran is attacked, they can launch missiles at Israel and blot out the sky with ballistic missiles, which would be ruinous for Israel. It would be painful. Their other deterrent is that if Iran is utterly destroyed, all their missiles, their nuclear hedge, their military is neutralized, well, then Iran's proxies, which are dispersed, could launch a second strike. If for whatever reason, Iran cannot race towards a nuke, cannot hit the button and launch missiles at Israel from Iran, cannot retaliate in a conventional way, well, then they can rely on Hezbollah in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas to bomb Israel. And Israel cannot launch a regional attack on everybody everywhere. You can't take out all of Iran's missiles and all of Iran's air defense and Iran's leadership and take out the 90,000 Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq and take out the 200,000 Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon and take out the Houthis. You can't do it everywhere at all times. We're now talking about millions of soldiers here and probably thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of different kinds of rockets and missiles. They couldn't do it. So the United States said, oh, we're done. We bombed their nukes. We're good. They're not a threat to us. Israel said, phase one complete. They said, now the runway has been cleared. Now that the worst deterrent has been taken offline, now we can degrade their other capabilities. And so Israel began to regroup and plan and prepare to then launch attacks on Iran's missiles, on Iran's proxies, on its military leadership or civilian leadership. That brings us to where we are right now. Now, we're 7 months out after that initial war. And I said this the day after that initial war. After we bomb Iran, after Israel bombs Iran, what is Iran's reaction? We've thought about America's perspective. We've thought about Israel's perspective. What is Iran's perspective? Well, it's very important to consider that the United States was in negotiations with Iran when that war started. And when the war started, the United States came out and said it was a fake out. Steve Witkoff and Trump went on TV and said, we didn't really intend to make a deal with Iran. We were negotiating with them so that they would lower their guard and that they would not expect or anticipate a preemptive strike. And that allowed Israel to have that element of surprise. And that also then allowed us to bomb them. Okay, so if you're Iran, What is your reaction to all of this? Well, you realize that you cannot trust the United States. In particular, you cannot trust Trump. They say that if we engage with the United States in diplomacy, they're going to pull the rug out from under us. We're lowering our guard. We're vulnerable. If we think we're going to get a deal, in the end, we get attacked. And the United States is either unable or unwilling to restrain Israel. The tail seems to wag the dog. The United States seems to be actually the junior partner in Israel's foreign policy. So what does Iran do in response to the war? Well, immediately they send out all of the weapons inspectors from the IAEA. Immediately they cut off all diplomacy with the United States. And then their next step is to reconstitute all of their defensive capabilities. They are now effectively in a war with Israel and the United States. That is how they see it. So if you're in a war with the United States, what's your only deterrent? A nuclear bomb. So what do you think Iran did? I imagine they started moving their highly enriched uranium, building new enrichment facilities. They have apparently undisclosed sites that are even deeper inside the mountains, even deeper underground than the ones that we knew about at Fordo and at Natanz. So Israel has their highly enriched uranium. They have other centrifuges. They have other sites we don't know about. And the word is they start to reconstitute their deterrent capabilities. They start to reconstitute their nuclear hedge to deter the United States. They start to reconstitute their missiles as a deterrent against Israel. Nukes deter the U.S., missiles and a nuke deter Israel. So Iran goes right back to work, building their missiles, building their nukes, furnishing their proxies like Hezbollah with billions of dollars so that they can rearm themselves. Now, what does Israel say? Well, if Israel is trying to destroy Iran, they cannot allow Iran to reconstitute. So you know that eventually, on a long enough timeline, Israel, and actually sooner rather than later, Israel's going to want to go back to war. If Israel's goal is to destroy Iran, it defeats the purpose of degrading their defenses if you're just going to wait for them to build them back up. Israel wants to destroy Iran, so we got to take out their defenses. You take out their defenses so that you can make a decisive strike. But if you wait too long, then Iran is simply just going to rebuild because they're a big and a rich country. They're an oil-rich country with a huge population. They are fortified. This country is built for a war with Israel. It's quite literally like the topography was built for a war. It's mountainous. It's very difficult terrain. It's 3 times the size of Iraq, huge population. So Israel's next move is they're not going to wait for Iran to do this. They are very soon going to want to go back in. And that will be the pretext. They will say it will have all been in vain. And actually, it will have ensured that Iran gets the bomb if we do nothing now. The way that the Israelis are going to spin it is, we attacked Iran once, that set them on the path inexorably to rearmament, not just with missiles, but also with nukes. We have to hit them again. It's a necessity. Otherwise, the first one, again, it was not only a waste, it would have accelerated the timeline for Iran to nuclearize. And it's hard to argue with this. Now, for the United States, how do we respond now to Iran's rearmament? Well, we have to assume, surely, that Iran is going to build a nuke. We must assume this. They have ejected the inspectors. They have ejected the IAEA. We know that we did not fully destroy their centrifuges, their stockpile of enriched uranium. And now they won't negotiate with us. By tricking them and bombing them, we have spoiled any potential rapport or trust. They won't talk to us. So we must assume that if they're not talking and they're rearming, that there is this ticking timeline where they're going to build a nuclear bomb. Now the United States is faced with exactly 2 possibilities. If Iran is building another nuclear hedge, then we can either negotiate with them to give it up, or we have to bomb them again. Once again, those are our only two options. There is no third option where we let them get the bomb. I know that I have said in the past that I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I'm telling you, the Pentagon cannot accept this. That is just U.S. strategy. Thinking in terms of the logic of international affairs, the United States cannot accept Iran having a bomb. We must assume they're building one. We must assume they are hell-bent on building one after that war. So you have two options. You can either blow up their bomb or you can negotiate. Well, the reason why that war last year was such a mistake is because Israel got us to bomb Iran directly. That had never happened before. We have killed their officials outside Iran. We have attacked their proxies outside of their country, not on their soil. But by bombing their soil in a sneak attack during negotiations, Israel made us get our hands dirty. They made us assume responsibility, assume the liability and the blame for all of it. That is why this was a great success for Israel. In that moment, we bought the war. And why is that the case? Because after we sneak Iran, we no longer can credibly go to them as a neutral party. We can't go to them and say, hey, we're cutting out Israel. We want to make a deal. You can trust us. We don't want to destroy you. By bombing them, we got our hands dirty. We got blood on our hands. We deceived them. We sabotaged any potential trust, any potential relationship. We demonstrated that we are unable to restrain Israel, that they are in fact in control of our foreign policy. And so what does that mean? It means that that second option of diplomacy is probably permanently foreclosed. At the minimum, it is extraordinarily difficult. It's just not going to happen. So Iran doesn't trust us. They don't want to negotiate. The United States is making these maximalist demands. We're basically telling Iran, you have to make yourself completely defenseless or else we will destroy you. They will never agree to that. They can't make themselves defenseless because, again, the reason they have pursued these weapon systems is because Israel wants them to be destroyed. So it has put us in an unavoidable, you see logically now how we are in an unavoidable collision course because Iran is rearming. They won't negotiate. We can't let them rearm. And although we might want to negotiate, that has been sabotaged. There's also a very short timeline because the longer we wait, mathematically, the more we have to assume that they have rebuilt. So this puts us, like I said it in 2024, I said it in 2025, we are trapped in this reciprocal exchange for which there is no off-ramp. You think that we live in a world where we have infinite choices and there's so many different permutations, so many different possibilities of where things can go. But what people don't realize is that we have been making decisions for 20 years. And every time we make a decision, we close off an entire tree of possibilities. That's the unseen aspect of all this. A lot of people saw last year, well, we bombed Iran and we did it one time and it wasn't a big deal. What they did not see is how that has now tied our hands and we are now being sent inexorably on really only one possible course of action. And it's not to say that it is impossible that we're able to negotiate, but it is extraordinarily unlikely and difficult. You see, Trump gets reelected. It was doomed from the start. Why? Because he killed Qasem Soleimani, because he went to war with the IRGC, because he ripped up the original nuclear deal. And they knew that. The Israelis knew that. They set us up. They installed the one man in the world who literally cannot make a deal with Iran. They installed the one man that murdered their hero, the one man that ripped up the original deal that we now have to reconstitute, the one man that they convinced Iran is trying to kill. So that was a poison pill. They put this guy in charge in the middle of this crisis because they knew he would not make a deal. They knew they could get him, they could bait him into giving them this layup and bombing Iran. And once they did, now we are set on this course. And that brings us to the events of the past 3 weeks. Netanyahu goes to Mar-a-Lago on December 29th, and he's begging Trump to bomb Iran. Specifically, what is he saying? He's begging Trump to bomb their missiles. So we took out the nukes, check. Now Netanyahu is worried about their other deterrent, their ballistic missiles. Because, of course, Israel cannot topple their government without Iran lobbing 1,000 missiles at Israel every single day for a week. So Israel has to take out now the missiles. So he goes to Trump and begs him, can we get the green light for a second wave of strikes? Coincidentally, a week later, one of Iran's state-sponsored banks collapses and there are massive protests. And as we talked about, these are not organic protests. This is a color revolution. Eyewitnesses, according to the Financial Times, said they saw men dressed in all black, armed with automatic rifles, storming government buildings. These are Israel and CIA-backed proxies, probably Kurdish in origin, if I had to guess, other separatists, other types of operatives. But then you have this color revolution, you have this insurrection backed by Israel and the CIA. Trump goes on Twitter and says help is on the way. He's preparing to strike Iran a second time, and this time attacking their internal security service and their missiles. At the last minute, he calls off the strike. Why? Because at this point in time, we had just kidnapped Maduro. And so all of our forces are either in the Pacific or in the Caribbean. We only had a handful of ships in the Middle East. What does that mean? It means we're missing an air force. We're missing key radar and early warning systems. We don't have a ton of personnel. And so if we strike Iran during the protests and it doesn't topple the regime, then they get to lob 100 missiles at Israel and missiles at U.S. bases without a warning, and we will not be able to sufficiently protect those targets. And that means that Israel's getting pounded. That means that U.S. bases in Iraqi Kurdistan, in Damascus, in Jordan, in Al Udeid, they're all being bombed, or they could all be potential targets. And so, at the last minute, Trump pulls back the strike and says, we need to wait to have more power in the region. We need to evacuate certain personnel. We need to get ready. And that's exactly what he did. So he diverted the USS Abraham Lincoln from the Pacific to the Middle East. He sent in a number of refueling aircraft, military transport aircraft, all kinds of strike aircraft, fighter jets, moving THAAD systems, moving anti-missile systems into the region, deploying tens of thousands of personnel, evacuating other personnel in preparation for a protracted wave of attacks against Iran. And that brings us to today. This is our story from the New York Times. This is the latest. It says, quote, President Trump has been presented in recent days with an expanded list of potential military options against Iran aimed at doing further damage to the country's nuclear and missile facilities or weakening Iran's supreme leader. The options go far beyond the proposals that Mr. Trump was considering 2 weeks ago as a means of following through on his promise to stop the killing of protesters by Iranian government security forces. The current set of options even includes the potential for American forces to carry out raids on sites inside Iran. And it comes in a different context now that the protests have been brutally quashed. Mr. Trump has been demanding that Iran take further steps to end its push to build the nuclear weapon and halt its support for proxies that have long targeted Israel and destabilized the Middle East. Mr. Trump has not yet authorized military action or chosen among the options The president remains open to finding a diplomatic solution, and some officials acknowledge that telegraphing the threats of military action was intended to drive the Iranians into a negotiation. In recent days, he has mulled whether regime change would be a viable option. With Iran, officials remain skeptical that Tehran would accept the conditions the U.S. has outlined. They include a permanent end to all enrichment of uranium, giving up its current nuclear stockpiles, starting with more than 960 pounds of uranium that has been enriched to near bomb-grade levels. The demands go even further and include limits on the range and number of ballistic missiles, an end to all support for proxy groups in the Middle East, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Agreeing to the missile limits would essentially make it impossible for Iran to strike Israel. Mr. Trump is still weighing the range of options. Among the riskiest would involve secretly sending in U.S. commandos to destroy or badly damage parts of the Iranian nuclear program not already damaged in the U.S. bombing last June. The aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, armed with Fa-18 attack planes, stealthy F-35 fighter jets, is on station in the Arabian Sea and within striking distance of Iranian targets. The carrier is accompanied by 3 missile-firing destroyers. The U.S. has already sent a dozen additional F-15E attack planes to the region to strengthen strike aircraft numbers, and the Pentagon has dispatched more Patriot and THAAD air defenses to the region to help protect American troops based there from any retaliatory strike by Iran short and medium-range missiles. Long-range bombers based in the United States that could strike targets in Iran remain on a higher-than-usual alert status. The Pentagon heightened the status 2 weeks ago when Mr. Trump requested options to respond to the protests. Okay? So we have another aircraft carrier there. We have all these fighter jets, strike aircraft. Everything's all ready to go. And these are our demands. We're telling Iran, you cannot enrich uranium. You have to give up your stockpile of enriched uranium. We are telling them you have to limit the number and range of your ballistic missiles such that they cannot hit Israel. And you have to abandon all your support for every regional group in the Middle East. Now, think about this from Iran's perspective. Israel wants you dead. We, the United States and Israel, have been openly talking about regime change for years. For years. Saying we want to topple their government. We want to reinstall the monarchy, the Shah. Iran's only means of defending itself is its nuclear hedge, its ballistic missiles, which can hit Israel, and its proxies. And we're telling them, if you don't make yourself absolutely defenseless, then we will destroy you. Well, Iran must realize that they will be destroyed regardless. If they give up their centrifuges, their enriched uranium, if they give up their missiles, if they give up their proxies, they are defenseless. They are vulnerable. If they don't have missiles that can hit Israel, then that means Israel can bomb them with impunity. Iran does not have adequate air defense. Iran does not have air superiority. If they don't have the missiles, Israel will control the skies, and that means they can just hit Iran whenever they want, however much they want. Without the proxies, Israel does not have to worry about anything on their border, not on the north with Hezbollah, the south with Hamas, the east with the Popular Mobilization Force. And without a nuke, you can topple the Iranian government and not have any concern about what happens next. Okay, so Iran becomes a failed state, so it balkanizes. So it turns into violent chaos and disorder that lasts decades. Well, as long as they don't have a nuke, not really our problem, so the logic goes. So our demands are that they make themselves defenseless. They will never agree to that. They will take their chances on the battlefield. Because if they don't, well, then now you're really screwed. Now you're up a creek without a paddle. So we're telling them either you give up everything, you render yourself completely vulnerable, or else we go in. Well, what do you think is going to happen here? Iran doesn't trust us. Iran has so far refused to negotiate. Iran will never agree to these terms. And by the way, even if they began to negotiate, once again, I will remind you, there is a third party here that is extremely active. And that third party, Israel, just as they did last year, just as they did in 2024, they will sabotage the diplomacy. So this is what I'm talking about. Ostensibly, we are there doing gunboat diplomacy. Give us what we want or else. Well, that relationship is already impossibly frayed. It is damaged beyond repair. It is irreparably harmed. But even if it worked, even if what Trump was doing could or did work, the Israelis have the final say. They have the ace up their sleeve because they could always sabotage it. So there is such a low likelihood, based on those years of distrust between the leaders of America, the current leaders of America and Iran, based on the years of hostilities, sabotage, subterfuge, openly hostile rhetoric. Even if you could overcome it, Israel would still sabotage it with a false flag, with some sort of provocation, with their rhetoric, lobbying. They would find a way to derail it. And that means you think you have a few options. Realistically, you have two. In the end, you have exactly one. They have narrowed the range of options to one course. It is a slit. It is not a double slit experiment. You have one hallway, one door that you can walk through, and that's a war with Iran. That's where we are. And it has to happen quickly, because what they are telling the United States is that Iran is racing towards a primitive nuclear warhead. It's a matter of time. What they are telling the United States is they are racing towards a newly built ballistic missile arsenal. Israel says that Iran has fully reconstituted its missile program to the same level as it had before Israel went to war with Iran last June. And to top it all off, Netanyahu is making his 6th visit to the White House in February, which is in 2 days. Okay? This is where we are. So I think it is inevitable, it is a certainty that we are going to war with Iran quickly. And they got Trump locked in for 4 years. And it doesn't stop here, even if this one is another one and done. The long-term goal is to topple the Iranian government. This is a terminal regime. It's over. Their proxies are defeated. As a regional power, they are neutralized. Their strategic weapons have been degraded. There is civil unrest. The economy is a failure. And so the United States and Israel are going to once again degrade Iran's defenses. And maybe this will just be the second one. They're going to attack the internal security service so that Iran is vulnerable to infiltration. They're going to attack Iran's missiles so that Iran cannot strike Israel preemptively or otherwise. They are going to finish off the nuclear hedge. And then Iran will be like a lame duck country waiting to be toppled by a color revolution and assisted by the United States. And Israel knows they got 2 more years with this guy, 2 more years to make it happen. That's what we got set up for. And it was like that from the beginning. So that's the situation in Iran. You know, we're going to have to save this other story about ICE for tomorrow because we're out of time. It's already midnight. But suffice to say, the United States is now ending its policy of mass deportations. We're opening up a front with Iran. And so what do you say to all of the Trump supporters, the plan trusters, the shills? They said it would be a golden age. It would be different this time. They said we just simply need to trust the plan. They said all you need to do is put your head down and stop worrying and just trust Trump. If Trump is failing, it's only because of a lack of blind faith from his supporters. Well, it is January 29th, 2026. Mass deportations are already over. They never happened. And we are on our way to bomb Iran for the second time. Wow. Who could have possibly predicted it would end up like this? Not like this, Andrew Torba. Do you remember when Andrew Torba was posting every single day? Trump just said something based, and you're blackpilling? Remember that inanity? Do you remember that absolute and utter stupidity? Every single day. Well, Trump said something cool and you're blackpilling. Trump took a picture at McDonald's and you're blackpilling. Hey, wakey, wakey, Mr. Torba. Hate to disturb you at this hour on your, pasture-raised egg farm. Hate to disturb you at this time of night when you're sleeping with your trad wife, but we're about to go to war with Iran and mass deportations are over. So what do you have to say for yourself? That you were so miserably wrong, so miserably naive and stupid and lacking in foresight. The John Doyles, the AF Post employees, what do they have to say for themselves? You got played. You fell for it, you idiot. I am old enough to remember in 2024 when Trump stood there with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, when Trump took a paycheck from Miriam Adelson, when Trump promised to staple green cards to diplomas to David Sachs. And I remember all those people said, oh, that's a throwaway comment. Oh, that's actually what you want to see. Oh, Trump has to do that. He's just playing the game. If you don't think that's acceptable, well, you're not serious. They said, you don't know what it takes. You're not serious enough. That's what it takes to win in politics. They were telling us that like they knew. They said, listen up. We know how politics works. You have to cut a deal with Israel to get your mass deportations. Yeah, well, about that. We're a year in. You've deported 230,000 people, and they're already walking it back. We're a year in, and we're on our way to bomb Iran for the second time. And people are still coping, making up fake numbers. We actually deported 2 million people. Says who? Says this census survey of 65,000 people with a response bias. Oh. It never ends. And this is why, as I've said for years, I've said it all night, we cannot be these stupid people anymore. You cannot be in league with Barry Weiss. There is no outcome where you win. There is no outcome where Ben Shapiro and Jared Kushner are walking Trump to the Ohel to give his intention at the grave of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and you come out on top. Does that even need to be said? There is no timeline where you see your president wearing a kippah, holding hands with Jared Kushner and Ben Shapiro to put his little note at the grave of Menachem Schneerson, and that is our guy who's gonna be Hitler. Not gonna happen. If Shapiro thinks he's their guy and you think he's your guy, somebody is wrong. And it ain't Shapiro, okay? If Ben Shapiro thinks that Trump is his guy and, you're a heritage American or whatever, and you think Trump is your guy, one of you is wrong, and it's not the Jew. You want to know why? Because the Jews have Trump's phone number and you have a Twitter account. Never forget that. If Larry Fink, Miriam Adelson, Mark Levin, and Ben Shapiro, if they all think that Trump is their advocate, and you think they're wrong, he's your advocate, here's how you know who's actually wrong. Shapiro, Levin, Adelson, and Fink, they have a personal audience with Trump. They have his phone number. They have an open invite to the White House. You have a Twitter account. You roll out of bed, open up your mobile phone, log on to Twitter, and you post into the void. Trump isn't even there. He's on Truth Social, and it's all filtered through Susie Wiles, a lobbyist from Florida. Okay, Does it even need to be said? No, the posters are not in control. The Jews are in control. The posters with their insipid bullshit content are not controlling the White House. The Jews that are at the White House are controlling the White House. Does it need to be said? No, Aiden from AF Post does not outrank Miriam Adelson. Captive Dreamer and Jack Posobiec do not outrank Larry Fink and Bill Ackman. They don't. So, you trusted the plan, you fell for it. I told you so. I told you in 2024, the deportations will not happen. A war with Iran will happen. And now all these numbskulls are making excuses. They say, well, we're not really retreating. They say, well, we're not really going to war with Iran. Or maybe that's a good thing now. Who even knows? So they say. That's Trumpism. That's your movement. It's a load of crap. So anyway, we're going to move on. We'll take a look at our super chats. It's just so frustrating because I warned everybody this would happen. And all these people that are, they don't even hold a candle to me. I said precisely all of this 2 years ago. Exactly 2 years ago. To the letter. And people said, don't take him seriously. We know better. We're the serious people. We're the adults in the room. We're going to have sex with Peter Thiel, and we know how it's really going to go down. I'm at Project 2025, and I think that I'm working at Project 2025, and the based people are going to be the chief of staff and run the White House. You were wrong. Eat shit and fucking die. You were wrong. I was right. And now we reap what we sow. MAGA hat is staying on. Don't shimp out. Stay trusting the plan. Stay in line. These people are pathetic. They really think that if you don't complain on Twitter, Trump will improve. They're like, hey, everybody relax. Here's how he can still win. It's like, what do you think this is materially affecting? It actually doesn't matter what you say or do. In the end, those are not the pressures and incentives and considerations that govern the world's most powerful office. So, yeah. Mass deportations, never going to happen. War with Iran on its way. We're going to move on. We'll take a look at these. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. We fixed entropy, so we're good tonight. But, yeah. It's just wild. I know I keep going on, but I can't get it out of my head that, how much of a miserable catastrophe is it? Let's just go through the list, shall we? I'm really relishing this. This one's for John Doyle. This one's for Andrew Torba. This one's for all you true goyim. This one is for all you Shabbos goys. Who would flip the light switches if it wasn't for you? Who would open the refrigerators? Who would turn the lights on and off? Who would carry water for the Jews that hate us if it wasn't for these useful goyim? If it wasn't for you useful idiots? Let's see, what were we promised? In 2024, they said we were going to cut the deficit by $2 trillion. Remember that? Cut the deficit by $2 trillion. Because we have Doge. It's going to be funny. We're going to move quickly and break things. We're going to bring that private sector mentality to the White House. We're going to cut $2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. Elon Musk, Vivek, Tulsi, RFK, Tucker, Trump are staying alive. Yeah, well, Doge failed after 3 months. And then Elon left the White House ignominiously after cutting nothing. Let's see, what else? Mass deportations. Didn't you see those signs? Look, people at the RNC held up a sign that said mass deportations. It has to happen, right? We've deported 230,000 people. That's fewer than Obama's first year in office. And now they're drawing down the number of ICE agents from Minneapolis. They're going to shift gears and focus on targeted enforcement instead of sweeping raids. House and Senate Republicans back down. They're going to let the Democrats defund DHS to put in place more restrictions. They're leaving Maine. Here's your mass deportations. They said that Trump was going to make everything affordable, fix the economy. It's going to be a new golden age. Today, Trump said he wants house prices to keep going up. He said if housing prices go down, it hurts homeowners. So he said it's my job to keep housing prices going up. In perpetuity, houses aren't expensive enough. It just gets better and better. Bitcoin is down 15% over the last year. It just gets better and better. We hit the cap for H-1B visas, 130,000. Trump said, I will end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Well, it's still going on. He said, I will bring peace to the Middle East. We have another armada off the coast of Iran ready to go. Yeah, there we are. And now what's going to happen? We're setting ourselves up to lose in 28. And you want to know the truth? If the Democrats win in 28, you realize that they are coming back with a vengeance. You do realize that, right? If the Democrats had won in 24, they would be on the back foot. If the Democrats won in 24, let me tell you something. If Biden was succeeded by Harris, she could not, would not, she wouldn't have the political capital to go balls to the wall. The Democrats were already falling apart. Half the country would think the election was stolen. Most of the country would think she's an illegitimate president because she never won a primary ever. She would be a complete disaster. If she went to war with Iran, nobody would support it. Everybody would be criticizing it. Think about how weak a Democrat administration would be this year. But if you elect Trump, and Trump antagonizes the left for 4 years, arresting James Comey, arresting Letitia James, arresting all these people, doing all these things, they are coming back with a vengeance. Now they're pissed off. And Trump has alienated the young people, alienated Hispanics, alienated moderates and independents. And he's not going to be on the ballot in 28. This fat, uncharismatic dork who has never been tested, who has never had a job, this goofus, he's going to be the nominee. And Republicans have made sure of it, that there won't even be a competition. They're going to give him the crown and say, good luck. And if this guy cannot rally the Trump coalition, if he shits the bed, we're all screwed. Like, it's over. So, and what good will it have done? People said, well, something's better than nothing. Not really. If we get a Democrat in 2028, is it going to matter that we deported 250,000 people? It's not even a drop in the bucket. Like, think about it. People say, hey, well, it's something. It's better than the alternative. Dude, if we get to 2028 and we've only deported 1 million people, that's not worth it at all. If we get to 28 and we get a Democrat who launches an inquisition, it would not have been worth it to only deport 1 million people. It just wouldn't have been. If we get a war with Iran and no mass deportations, and then we get a Democrat that's going to punish all of us, was that better than nothing? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. But all these people said, hey, don't ask that question. They said, don't entertain the notion. It's unthinkable. They said, don't even entertain the notion that we shouldn't vote for Trump or not trust the plan. I was the only one expressing this. They said, hey, just shut up and vote Republican. That's all you could do. Okay, well, now we're... But yeah, enjoy your Creed playlist on Spotify. All right, let's take a look at the super chats for real this time. We're going to take a look. We'll see what we got here.
Oh, boy. Round and round we go. Round and round we go. And I'm starting to realize, well, I'm not starting to realize. I'm starting to realize that every time I'm starting to realize, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing every time where if we get caught up in the left versus right. And I want to ask y'all, because I was looking at a lot of comments from the previous post, yesterday's show.
And I'm trying to figure out, are y'all seeing the same thing? Are y'all seeing the same thing, that although you may agree and align with the things that Nick is saying, that it's just the equal opposite to a lot of the things that we may disagree with completely on the other side? And there's no conversation of just bringing people together when it comes to common sense. And perhaps this is why the news outlets, the politicians, this is why they like chaos. Perhaps this is why, because it allows for not only lazy journalism, but a lazy approach to fixing problems. And what do I mean by a lazy approach to fixing problems? It's lazy to just sit here and say, no, this is what we want. We're right. This is what it's going to be. We just need to go to war with them, destroy them, and then we'll win, and then we're good. Because what are the things that Nick is talking about throughout the show, and more so when he finished it up, saying how Democrats are now going to respond? This is what happens when things become radicalized. Yeah, now Trump, he's doing the same thing that perhaps the Democrats were doing to him, trying to lock him up. Now he's doing the same thing with them, with Letitia James or whoever else. Now, how do we think they're going to respond? Now we end up in a situation where perhaps it was like 9/11, where instead of us going after who allegedly did 9/11, you got little Bush trying to fight daddy's issues and bringing American soldiers, American troops, putting our lives on the line and justifying something that had nothing to do with the Iraq war with 9/11, or you get what I'm saying, as far as using 9/11 to justify you trying to get some get back for your dad and getting us back involved in an Iraq war. This is the same thing. We have our politicians that are taking out their personal vendettas and aligning them with some sort of radical agenda, and we get behind it because the evil on this side or the radical on this side is better than the radical on that side, which it may be, especially when it comes to conservatives. It may be the radical on the conservative side. If I'm just being real with y'all, a lot of times I think, and I always remember my big bro Doug asking me on a show where I was like, there's radical things on both sides. And he asked me, what are some of the radical things on the Republican side? And it takes me a lot longer to think about the radical things on the Republican side than when it comes to on the Democratic side. It's just easy. There's boys playing sports against women. There's books in school libraries about boys pleasing other boys sexually. There's an okay for kids to, matter of fact, not even okay. There's an influence. Kids are, it's like y'all pushing kids to change their gender and to shift. And it's just a very weird energy that's being pushed with all the woke ideology stuff. But then when it comes to the Republican side, it's more so, I guess, aligned with the neoconservative values that Trump was supposed to get us away from. When I think about the radical things that have traditionally been on the Republican side, it's been more so the wars. And, you could talk about abortion, maybe, them saying a total ban. And the older I get, the more I lean more in that direction. Just being totally transparent with y'all. So I think that the radical things on the left are far more radical and extreme, and just as far as how I value my principles, morals, and values compared to the radical things on the right. However, and maybe this is more of maybe why, just being real with y'all, I'm unpacking this as I'm having a conversation with y'all. But perhaps this is why the Democrats have been able to capitalize on having like soft, compassionate talk and appear as if, these are the people that care about you the most. They appeal to your emotions, the positive things, right? They want, we're the nice people fighting for you. Now, that has completely gone a different direction, just like we thought Trump was bringing the Republican Party into a completely different direction than what we're currently seeing with all the neoconservative nature. We were voting not for Mark Levin, not for Ben Shapiro, not for Nikki Haley, not for Bibi Netanyahu. We were voting for Trump to do exactly what Nick said that he would do, right? What Nick said, Trump said that he would do. No new wars, golden age. Now it's like Trump, like, whose team are you on? You were trying to deport people, put American workers first. Now you say, no, American workers aren't smart enough. We need H-1B visas. Now you say, oh, no, we need these people to work on the farms. We're going to deport them, but bring them right back in. And you couple that with now I guess Trump feels like he needed to overcompensate with the ICE energy. That failed miserably. Tom Homan up there with a completely different tune than we heard Tom Homan before, and Bovino. That failed. So we're just sitting here, even as far as you being controlled. Well, we already know what happened with the Epstein files. That didn't happen. This new golden age, bringing the economy back, and your answer is, well, we can't lower the prices of homes because then we would hurt the people that have owned their homes. It's like there needs to be some sort of balance. Yeah, a lot of those people, I'm pretty sure that even if you decrease the prices of homes, they would still get some sort of value compared to what they bought it at, perhaps. And if that's not your way of going about fixing the issue, then you have to figure out a different way. You can't just sit here and try to make us feel bad for people that have owned homes and say, well, we can't decrease the prices of homes. We can't make them more affordable because then we'd be hurting these people that own them. Okay, we'll figure out another solution. I'm pretty sure you understood that before you came into office, before you were bragging about this being the golden time, the golden period, whatever he called it, the golden years. So we're in a very difficult position. And what I started off the show saying is that when it comes to politics, the more I learn about it, the more I'm doing these reviews, the more we're covering a lot of these topics that are going on in the world. It's the same thing. It's all the same play. And when I say it's the same thing, the same play, what's the solution? The solution is, okay, adults from different aspects of life. We can start with the adults from the Democrats meeting with the adults from the Republicans and figuring out a way. Okay, what are the top 5 things that you want? What are the top 5 things that you want? Okay, how can we work together to accomplish those things? Instead, it's painted in a picture, painted in a way where, and this is because it has gotten so radicalized, where in order for me to get anything that I want on this end as a Democrat, or if anything, in order for me to get anything that I want on this side as a Republican, they can't get anything they want on their side. That's not what being an adult is. Being an adult is compromise. That's what a democracy is. That's the whole point of the democracy in the first place, right? To gain all of these different perspectives so they all can be considered, and then we grow and move from there. We actually take away from our democracy just by having the 2-party system. We remove our democracy because now instead of having millions of people vote, now we just have 2. Now instead of truly having to look at, okay, what is the input of all these Americans? What do they really want? No, it's just we can just make sure that this group is extreme as possible. This group is extreme as possible. So therefore, we just need to appease these separate parties. Even if we accomplish one thing for this party or accomplish one thing for that party, they still see it as a win as long as that other side doesn't get anything that they want. How is that being a leader of a company? We're approaching this as if there's 2 different teams here. We've been convinced, indoctrinated to think that there's 2 different teams. So therefore, when this person gets in office, they have less work to do. The only thing they have to do is appeal to their team. Or when this person gets in office, the only thing they have to do is appeal to their team. No, you get in office, you have to serve the people. You have to take into what all of the Americans feel, what all the Americans are experiencing, right? And then formulate the best policies based on those. But with all the bickering back and forth, we don't even get either agenda accomplished. What was it last time when Biden was in office? Wasn't it like the lowest point for the Democratic Party as far as how their party felt about them? Like the lowest approval rating that they were getting in years? And it's the same thing with the Republicans. So how did we get here? Who do we blame? Do we just sit back and blame the politicians? Or do we say, hey, how are we participating in this? What are some things that I can do in order to impact this and move this in a more positive direction? What are the things that I can focus on? We know where the whole radical back and forth. Nick may be Nick's approach is, no, we got to win. We got to beat the left. We got to. Bro, that type of thinking got us here because you may feel that way. However, the politicians, they don't think that way. And we're acting as if the politicians, even though they use the same sort of rhetoric that may be appealing to, let's say, Nick, when Trump is using a lot of that rhetoric, or anybody else, or Democrats using rhetoric would be appealing to the liberals and the Democrats. When they're using that rhetoric, we have to understand that they're only doing that, but to serve their master, to serve the powers that be, right? You think that they just turn it over to politicians? Do you think that if you became highly successful and you've been a significant power, your family, whatever it may be, through the wealth that you've generated, do you think that they're just going to turn it over to some goofy politicians that they know will just go whichever way the wind blows? The scent of money, where's the scent of money coming from? All right, I'm going that way. We're approaching this radicalized approach like I believe Nick is encouraging us to do, which is it's left versus right. We got to win. It's us versus them. We're approaching it without the understanding that, bro, we may have that energy. That energy, all it's going to do is lead us to get manipulated. Like Nick pointed out, a lot of us did in voting for Trump, like I did. Trump failed. The things that he said that got me to vote for him, he hasn't done. And we have to be honest about that. And if we're not honest about that, then we're going to continue to lose. But that's the same rhetoric that gets us on board with voting for these people. But we're not taking into account that these people are just selling a product and they are just representing a product that is not even theirs. They're controlled by the powers that be that are funding both parties to create this chaos. Don't you think if you were powerful and if you truly cared about the country, that you would just say, hey, Trump, into my office. Hey, Biden, into my office. What's the problem? We need to fix this. We know that there's people above them. Just look at how Trump's behaving. So what I want us to take into account is if the people above them are intentionally causing chaos, then what are they intentionally pushing Trump and Kamala and Biden to do? To fight with each other. They want the Jasmine Crockett's. They want Jasmine Crockett beefing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. They want that. It distracts us from paying attention to the real solution, the only solution. We've learned this at a young age. Yo, get in the room, sit down, and we'll figure out, this is what you do with a marriage. You're telling us we're not intelligent enough to understand that, hey, maybe we should do this when it comes to our politics? Hey, you come to my office. You come to my office. We should be demanding that of these politicians. Instead of us cheerleading the politicians winning a debate against each other that doesn't show us anything, all it shows is what, how good of a debater they are, or what false promises they can make, or promises they can make that have no intention of actually following through on, and perhaps no control of it. We're seeing that with Trump. Trump has no control over this, and it's clear as day to me. He may be benefiting from it. I'm sure he is benefiting from it, especially with a lot of this stuff that's come out with the amount of money that they've gained, his family. But he doesn't feel, let me say, it takes somebody who's willing to, you got to, damn near to be president and stand on stuff, you got to be willing to die. You got to be willing for them to kill you. Who's signing up for that? Not a lot of people. So that's, and what I'm saying is that we have to understand that. So us understanding that, we just play ourselves by getting caught up in the left versus right. We're just playing ourselves. It doesn't make any sense. They're only doing it so they can confuse us, so they can create this chaos, which makes us more and more radicalized and more so willing to lean into things outside of the parameters of our principles, right? We're willing to extend those parameters of our principles just because we hate that other side so much. That's what I see happening. So over and over when I do these reviews, I'm like, hey, if we look at it from a solution-based perspective, this is very simple. So for the people not calling out for the simplicity of this, like, yo, Just figure, okay, we can budge a little bit here on this. We can budge a little bit here on this. Okay. Oh, look up at the end of lunch. We already got, we're agreeing more than we disagree. What are your non-negotiables? What are your, all right, well, let's figure out a way to work. This is very simple. It's very simple. They want us like this. They want us arguing. They want us fussing. They want us storming the Capitol. They want us doing these dumb protests, regardless of what side of the protest you're on. They want all of this. They don't care about what it looks like to other countries. They don't care as much about that as they do about staying in control and keeping us lost. They understand that a price may come with that, but they don't care. Just think about it. America, we still brag about being the best country in the world. People still going to want to come here. So what are they really risking? So these are just the thoughts. I didn't even get into a lot of the notes because it's really the same thing over and over. You know, when Nick says certain things like we need to reconquer America from all the people that are destroying our society, I get that. But how do we go about that? Do we need to reconquer America, or do we need to, on both sides, approach the table with some common sense and just figure out how to work together to improve life for everybody? Now, a lot of y'all may say, well, that's delusional, bro. You can't. Well, where is this going to lead? If you think that this works, then you're delusional as well, because we've tried this way. We haven't tried my way. We've tried the other way, the us versus them, the Democrats versus Republicans. And where has that led us? Complaining about the same thing, expecting a different result, and doing the same thing. So let's keep it moving. So Nick, once again, he said we need to embrace the far right. They're the only ones that want everyone else out the country. What are the goals here, bro? Have we gotten to the point where it's just like, all right, get rid of all the Jews, get rid of all the Muslims, get rid of those brown people. We can keep some of these because we need some workers. Is that really what we've gotten to? Is that the solution that we feel is, okay, we huddled up, we processed everything, we went through over, and this is what we're presenting to everybody. This is the answer. How realistic is that even? How realistic is that even? Even from a standpoint of, yes, the Democrats, it is important for us to establish that the Democrats did something that destroyed our country in a lot of ways when it comes to the 10 million people or millions upon millions of people that came here illegally. Yes, they did that selfishly. So is our response to then turn around and do something selfish on the other side, or do we figure this out together? Or do we just want the protests that are going on in Minneapolis? What result do we want from all of this? What result do we want from all this? That's the question that I'm asking. And then the same type of thinking. So Nick went on to go more into like Iran, and he was discussing how Trump called off the last strike because I guess we had a lot of our forces helping out with Venezuela, helping out in other areas. But now it looks like we're getting ready to bomb Iran again. Now it looks like we're getting ready to bomb Iran again. Why are we putting ourselves in this position? Could it be for any other reason than Bibi Netanyahu and Israel want us to? Now we're going to tell a country that they can't have a nuclear weapon. They can't have certain missiles. Understanding with them, looking at it from a perspective, was look at what Israel's doing in this region. Look at what the clean break memo said that they would do years ago. When the clean break memo said, nah, the time we're not being nice anymore. We're not giving up stuff. We're going on the aggressive. We're going on the offensive. Israel is the main cheerleader of us bombing Iran and destroying their nukes. While Israel, they haven't even let us know if they even have nuclear weapons. It's like a running joke almost, because we're too scared to put pressure on them to reveal them having it. Because if they reveal that they have them, maybe perhaps people around the world will say, well, wait, why can't Iran have them? Has Iran caused more death and destruction, or what? Like, what are we basing this off of? Oh, it's just because Israel's our friend, the friend that controls our government, the friend that gets us in a bunch of these beefs and things with other countries, to them where we become dependent on them. So we're rationalizing the need to have them as an ally based on the beefs that they get us into, and then us needing to surveil all of these other countries that outside of our relationship and backing Israel and all the death and destruction that they're causing, we wouldn't even have these problems in the first place. So I don't really have a lot to say on these things. But I would just ask Nick, what are the results? If we go about it Nick's way, and let's say there's half the country on this side, half the country on the other side, and it's just, we just got to beat them. Okay, we beat them. What ultimately ends up? Do we just depend on, well, we just got to make sure we're staying in power, so therefore we'll always just be winning and we'll do anything to make sure that we stay in power? Is that realistic? Is that what we want out of the country? Now, when they get in power, what do you think their energy is going to be? They need to do anything by any means necessary to stay in power. That doesn't benefit us. That doesn't benefit the people. And all it does, it actually shifts a lot more within us, where it actually radicalizes us. It actually changes us, who we are. We become more hate-filled. We become more demonic. We become less godly. The more we separate from each other and have that mindset and embrace that rather than uniting and coming together, the more we get played to hate each other, the less godly we become. So I'm just going to leave it there. I don't really have much more to say on this. Trump's been a complete failure. He played a lot of us, me included. He hasn't landed on much of anything that he said he would do outside of just closing the borders. Outside of that, all he's been doing is getting bullied by Bibi Netanyahu and Israel and doing their biddings. I bet the approval rating for Donald Trump is higher amongst Israelis than it is amongst Americans. I bet, well, that may not even be saying much. I bet the approval rating for Donald Trump is higher amongst Israelis than people that voted for Trump. I would be very interested in looking at and like doing a study on that. That says a lot about the quote unquote America first. Yeah, right, bro. Knock it off. You're not trying to make America great again. Your definition of what America being great is you compromising your soul, compromising your values, your principles, what you said you would stand on, compromising your word in order to appease a foreign government. That's where we are. On that note, I'm going to let y'all go. I know it was a little bit of a shorter response. I believe it was a shorter response than normal. But that's all I got for y'all today, man. That's all I got for y'all today. It's Friday. We just keep going through these cycles. And at a certain point in time, like, are we just going to wake up and just get out of this matrix that we're in, this political matrix? Like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Excuse me. Turn your notifications on. As our big bro Robert always says, control the algorithm. Don't let the algorithm control you. Damn, I can't get out of here soon enough. Can't even get my words out. But let's figure out what we want. Let's figure out how we can contribute to maybe doing stuff different, seeing things different, adjusting our perspective. So therefore we can perhaps adjust our results. So as always, my bias, I'm sure will come into play, is coming into play. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but let me know if it's creating any blind spots for me where I may be off, and just let me know. Just tap in where you're from, what you agree with, what you disagree with, or just show some love in a different way. But on that note, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.
TB, GI, TC. It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM fought that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that. I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.